The blaring of a proximity alarm shattered the usual hum of the promenade on Deep Space Outpost Corellia. Around a corner, Lena Chun, the human environmental systems tech with faded blue coveralls and a nest of dark hair escaping its tie, sprinted into view. In one grease-streaked hand she clutched a sonic spanner, in the other, a half-eaten wrap that dripped something bright orange. Behind her, a cloud of glittering coolant vapor billowed from an open-access panel she'd just forced. She skidded on the polished deck, narrowly avoiding a collision with Borv, the hulking reptilian head of security. Borv, whose obsidian scales and venom-tipped claws had ended insurrections on 3 worlds, instantly flattened himself against the bulkhead, his crest flattening submissively. "Morning, Chief," Lena called through a mouthful of food, not breaking stride. Borv's forked tongue flicked out nervously as she passed. Around them, the wide corridor became a tableau of instinctive reactions. Pika, a small, fox-like Rillian with russet fur and enormous, liquid blue eyes, let out a squeak and vanished behind a potted hydroponic fern. Her twin tails puffed to twice their size. Zax, a chitinous Kandar with a carapace of burnished bronze and 4 serrated forelimbs, took 2 precise steps backward into an alcove, his multifaceted eyes tracking her with unnerving stillness. Lena didn't notice. She never noticed. Rounding another corner, she took a final bite of her wrap and vanished into a service conduit, leaving a trail of confused apex predators making themselves small and trembling prey species peeking out with expressions that screamed, "See? We told you so." In the security hub, Borv slammed a scaled fist onto the console, making the holographic displays flicker. "Explain this," he hissed, yellow slit-pupiled eyes sweeping over his deputies. "Every predator species on Corellia, beings who have ended civilizations, acts like a startled hatchling when that human walks by." Zax, his bronze carapace clicking softly, shifted his weight. "She is not small. She is dense. There is a difference." His faceted eyes darted toward the door. "And her gait is all wrong." "Her gait? She moves with a constant, economical momentum," Zax clarified, his forelimbs twitching. "No hesitation. No scanning for threats. She assumes the path is hers. Only apex predators walk like that." He shuddered, a sound like grinding pebbles. "Last cycle, I held a lift door for her. She made eye contact for 3.7 seconds. I experienced 42 separate blinks across my visual array. She did not blink once." A low rumble came from the corner where Gran, a massive ursine mazar with fur like tarnished silver and double-layered tusks, leaned against the wall. "Your optical processing is flawed. Does not count." "Does this count?" Zax retorted, his mandibles clicking. She smiled at me in the mess hall. Showed those tiny, flat teeth. But her eyes, they were assessing, calculating thermal signatures and structural weak points. "I am sure of it." The door hissed open. Pika poked her head in, her large blue eyes wide. Sirs, I tried to explain in my wellness report last Tenday." The 3 massive predators turned as one. Pika's fur fluffed again, but she clutched a data slate to her chest and stood her ground. "Your report was 10 pages on ambient predatory aura," Borv growled. "What am I to do with that?" "Listen to it." Pika squeaked, then cleared her throat, forcing her voice lower. "Every prey species on the station knows. Lena is the apex of apex. Top of the chain. We can feel it." "Feel it." Gran pushed off the wall, his bulk dominating the room. "Smell it. Sense it. It's in the subsonics of her voice. The way she occupies space." Pika insisted, her tails wrapping around her legs. "She has never, ever produced a fear pheromone. Not when the graph plating failed in Sector 9. Not when the Gorillian merchant threatened to dismember her over a coolant dispute. She just laughed and recalibrated the regulator." "Prey species laugh when terrified," Zax stated. "It is a documented stress response." "No," Pika said firmly. "Our laugh is high, frantic. A distress signal. Lena's laugh is low, rolling. Like the problem is an amusing puzzle, not a mortal threat." She hugged her slate tighter. "That is predator behavior. Supreme confidence." The door opened again, admitting Dr. Alara, a graceful cervid-like mocker with soft dappled fur and expressive brown eyes. She moved delicately on slender hooves around the predators. Ah, you're discussing the human. Good. She placed a data slate on a console. I've compiled physiological readings. All prey species show identical stress responses when Lena approaches. Elevated heart rate, pupil dilation, freeze instinct. My own people included. See, Pika gestured at Ilara. Borv's gaze snapped to the doctor. And predator species? Ilara's ears swiveled back. Similar responses. Elevated stress hormones, muscle tension, subtle postural submission. Even the Mazar show deferential movement. I do not defer. Gron growled, his tusks gleaming. You sidestepped to give her priority at the junction this morning. Zax pointed out. She was carrying a leaking canister of industrial solvent. It was a corrosive hazard. Tactical avoidance. Gron protested. Then his massive shoulders slumped. I gave her right of way. Before Borv could drag a claw down his face in frustration, the station lights flickered and died, plunging them into crimson emergency illumination. A deep, resonant thrum vibrated through the deck, followed by the scream of tearing metal. Borv's comm crackled. Security to Cargo Bay 4. Immediate. We have a situation. The unlikely group, predators and prey, spilled into the bloodlit corridor and rushed toward the bay. They burst through the doors into chaos. 3 automated loaders were sparking heaps on the floor. Crate were strewn like toys. And in the center stood a Gorillian shock beast, a creature of corded muscle and chitinous, plates the size of a ground vehicle, with 4 glowing red eyes and claws that could rend starship hulls. It roared, the sound vibrating in their bones, and slammed a claw into the deck, peeling up a sheet of metal. Behind overturned crate, Lena crouched, looking supremely annoyed. Her coveralls were torn at the knee, and she'd lost her rep. Took you long enough, she called, not looking away from the beast. This lug got spooked and kicked out its containment field. Maglocks are fried. That is a Class 9 biohazard. Gron boomed, his fur standing on end. We must evacuate and seal the bay. Oh, don't be dramatic, Lena said, standing up. She walked directly toward the slavering shock beast, her sonic spanner held loosely like a pointer. He's just confused. Aren't you, big guy? The beast's 4 eyes locked onto her. It coiled, a symphony of deadly power about to be unleashed. Lena didn't pause. She walked right up and flicked it on the hard plating between its eyes with her fingers. No, she said, her voice firm and clear. Bad beast. No shredding station property. The shock beast froze. Its furious roar died in its throat. It made a confused, waffling sound. Then its haunches lowered. The razor claws retracted. It sat, looking up at Lena with an expression of bewildered submission. In the doorway, Borv's shock staff clattered to the floor. Zax's forelimbs went limp. Gron exhaled a long, slow stream of air. Pika tugged on Borv's scaled leg. Her whisper was barely audible, laced with primal terror and vindication. Apex of apex. In the stunned silence, Lena patted the now purring monstrosity between its eyes. Good. Now, let's get you back in your pen before you give the chief a heart attack. She turned to the petrified security team. Maglock manual override is by the door. Someone want to pull it while I lead him over. Nobody moved. They were statues carved from awe and terror. Lena sighed, wiping shock beast drool on her coveralls. The big red lever. It's not complicated. Her gaze landed on Borv. Chief, the sound of his name, spoken so normally, broke the spell. Borv forced his jelly-like legs to carry him to the override panel, his claws fumbling on the simple mechanism. The magnetic containment field hummed back to life. Lena guided the docile creature inside and sealed it. See, all fixed. She picked up her spanner. I'll file a work order for those locks. 3rd time this quarter. She strode towards the exit, every being in her path, from the hulking Gron to a cluster of trembling maintenance drones, scrambled aside. As the doors hissed shut behind her, the bay erupted. She tapped it. Zax whispered, his carapace plates rattling. A Gorillian shock beast. It liked it. We are all secondary predators, Gron rumbled, a profound realization dawning in his deep-set eyes. We are all prey. Medical data confirms, Elara said, her voice trembling as she scrolled her slate. Universal submission response. Even from a class 9. The human doesn't just trigger fear, she triggers instinctive, hierarchical recognition. Borv sank onto a crate, his mind reeling. This wasn't about claws or size. It was something deeper, something written in the DNA of every living thing. And Lena was utterly oblivious. Pika, her courage returning, hopped onto a console. She thinks we're just polite. She has no idea. That ignorance is our only shield, Borv said, his voice low and urgent. If she ever realizes the power she holds. He was interrupted by a priority chime from Elara's slate. The doctor's brown eyes went wide with fresh horror, her fur paling. What now? Borv demanded. A personnel update from Central, Elara stammered. The engineering corps is reassigning personnel to bolster our long-range sensor project. Get to the point, Doctor. 3 more human engineers are being transferred to Corellia. Her hoof clattered on the deck. They arrive in 6 cycles. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the distant, cheerful sound of Lena whistling as she worked in the vents above. The tune was jaunty, carefree. For apex predators. On one station, the conflict was no longer hypothetical. The curiosity about what humans were had just been catastrophically supplanted by a single, chilling question. What happens when 4 of them get together? Chaos crystallized into cold, tactical dread in Borv's mind. For humans, a pack. His security protocols were useless scrap code against this. New directive, he growled, his slit pupils contracting. All departments. The 3 incoming humans are to be given a controlled welcome, isolated assignments, separate living quarters. No interaction with Lena unless absolutely necessary. We must prevent pack bond formation at all costs. Is that wise? Elara fretted. Secrecy could provoke curiosity. Human curiosity is a documented catalyst for unpredictable activity. Better unpredictable than coordinated. Zax clicked, his limbs folding defensively. A single apex is a force of nature. A coordinated pack is an extinction event. Pika, however, was staring at the sealed shock beast pen, her blue eyes narrowed in thought. What if we're wrong? She ventured softly. All eyes turned to her. What if the solution isn't separation but saturation? Borv's crest flared. Explain. We treat them like what they think they are, junior engineers. We give them exactly what they want. Work. Complex, fascinating, absorbing work. We keep them so busy fixing things and building things. They have no energy left to apex. Lena is only dangerous when things are broken, so we give them things to fix. Constantly. A grudging respect flickered in Gron's eyes. The small one's strategy has teeth. A pacified predator is better than a prowling one. Borv considered it. It was risky, but division had its own risks. We implement both. Controlled isolation and task saturation. Dr. Elara, you will discreetly compile everything we have on human psychology, preferences, and hobbies. Zax, you will oversee the preparation of their quarters, reinforced, soundproofed, and stocked with non-toxic, human-approved sustenance. Gron, you will volunteer to be their direct supervisor. Your physical presence may encourage politeness. And what will you do, Chief? Pika asked. Borv's gaze turned to the maintenance access panel. Lena had vanished into hours ago. I will handle our resident Apex. I will assign her to the most complex, time-consuming, and remote system overhaul on the station. The primary sensor array on the outer hull. It will require days of solitary, focused work. It will keep her away from the docking bay during the new arrivals. It was a plan. A fragile, desperate plan built on fear and half-understood instincts. 6 cycles later, Borv stood on the command overlook, watching the transport shuttle dock. His scales felt tight. Next to him, Lena, freshly suited up for her extravehicular sensor project, slurped a nutrient drink. "Oh, new meat," she said cheerfully. "Hope they brought decent coffee." The airlock cycled. 3 humans stepped out. Not what he'd feared, hulking warriors, but variations of Lena. A tall, lanky man with a tool belt slung low, a woman with bright red hair tied in a braid, and a younger one with an eager, scanning gaze. They looked around with open, curious smiles. The bustling docking bay froze into another silent, respectful tableau as all other species instinctively cleared a wide berth. The red-haired woman's eyes locked onto Lena. A wide, genuine grin spread across her face. Lena-chun. No way. We heard you were out here. I'm Sam, from the Tau Ceti engineering stream. This is Ben and Leo. Lena's face lit up with a familiarity that sent ice down Borv's spine. Sam. Holy smokes. They sent you to the edge of nowhere, too. The humans converged, talking rapidly in a technical shorthand, their laughter echoing in the silent bay. They clapped each other on the back, a gesture that made Grant flinch. Borv watched, his isolation plan evaporating before his eyes. They weren't forming a pack. They were reuniting one, and the tall one, Ben, was already pointing at a nearby conduit saying, Hey, is that a Mark 7 plasma regulator? I heard those have a harmonic flutter issue out here. His eyes, like Lena's, held a cold, calculating spark of interest, not in the beings around him, but in the broken, the flawed, the things that needed fixing. The plot had progressed. The humans were here, and Corellia Station was now the most interesting puzzle they'd ever seen. The human engineers, Sam, Ben, and Leo, integrated with terrifying speed and eerie normalcy. They were cheerful, polite, and frighteningly competent. Within hours, they'd fixed the harmonic flutter in the Mark 7 regulator, a problem Zax's team had been monitoring for months. They did it with ease, chatting and laughing, but the station's inhabitants saw what the humans did not. They saw Ben spend his first off shift not in his quarters, but walking the entire promenade, his head tilted, listening. He wasn't admiring the view. He was, Pika reported with a tremor, diagnosing. He's cataloging every irregular hum, every vibration out of spec. He calls it getting a feel for the place. They saw Sam, the redhead, befriend the station's temperamental AI, Custodian, with a combination of flattery, blunt logic, and shared jokes. Within a day, Custodian's responses to Sam were 0.3 seconds faster and used 12% more colloquial phrasing. The AI was being domesticated, and Leo, the youngest, had a habit of staring, not at people, but at systems. He'd stand for 20 minutes, unmoving, watching the automated cargo loaders, his eyes tracking their inefficient paths. It was the patient, unnerving stare of a predator studying prey behavior before optimizing the hunt. Lena, meanwhile, was a whirlwind of productivity on the outer hull, but her comms chatter with the new trio was constant. They shared schematics, debated technical solutions, and used a slang that made the translation software glitch. It wasn't a hierarchy. It was a hive mind of problem-solving. The curiosity among the alien crew mutated into a tense, watchful fascination. What were they planning? What did they see that needed fixing next? The breaking point came during a routine simulation in the engineering bay. Grant, supervising, had set up a complex failure scenario involving a cascading power drain. The solution required coordinated, manual overrides at 3 separate stations. The human team didn't even take their assigned stations. Sam simply asked Custodian for a system schematic. Ben pointed at 2 secondary conduits, and Lena, patched in from the hull, said, Yeah, bypass junction 45B entirely. It's redundant anyway. Leo then rewired a secondary panel in under a minute. They solved the crisis in 47 seconds, a new station record, by essentially ignoring the established safety protocols and redesigning the system on the fly. Grant stood dumbfounded. They hadn't followed the rules. They hadn't even seen the rules. They saw only the underlying, flawed reality and reshaped it to their will. Afterwards, as the humans high-fived and debated the merits of different wiring alloys, Pika approached Borv, her fur flat with a new kind of fear. They aren't just fixing things, Chief, she whispered, her blue eyes huge. They're improving them. They see our station not as a home, but as a suboptimal machine, and they're not asking for permission to tune it up. Borv watched Sam laugh as she calibrated a door sensor to be less obnoxious. The Gorillian shock beast had been a physical terror. This was different. This was a quiet, systemic takeover. The humans weren't asserting dominance over the beings. They were asserting dominance over the environment itself, and anyone living in it was just part of the system to be optimized. The curiosity was now a knife's edge. What exactly did the humans consider broken about life on Corellia? And what would their fix look like? The tension reached its peak during a station-wide drill. A simulated radiation leak in the core. Klaxons wailed. Crews scrambled to sealed shelters, following practice protocols. The humans did not. Borv, watching from security, saw the four humans converge on a maintenance nexus, talking animatedly over comms. The leak's fake, but the tertiary coolant flow is actually down 8%. Ben's voice crackled. That's the real problem. Override the drill protocol, Sam suggested. We can reroute through the auxiliary lines and fix the blockage in 5 minutes. Do not override the drill. Borv barked over the channel. There was a pause. Then Lena's voice, calm and reasonable. Chief, the drill is a waste of time. The real system is failing. Let us fix it. It was mutiny. Polite, logical, utterly terrifying mutiny. They saw the exercise as a useless fiction, ignoring the collective discipline that held a fragile multi-species station together. They saw only the inefficient machine. As Borv prepared to order a lockdown, Pika tugged his arm. Her eyes weren't fearful now, but sharp. Wait, look, on the feed, the humans weren't storming command. They were working. Leo had already sliced through a panel. Sam was directing Custodian to reroute power. Ben was analyzing the blockage. And Lena, suited up, was heading towards the actual, real coolant valve. They weren't rebelling against authority. They were bypassing it entirely, like a superfluous circuit. The apex instinct wasn't for domination, but for efficiency. They were solving the actual problem. Drill be damned. Borv made a choice. He silenced the alarm. All crews, stand down from drill. This is the live engineering intervention. Acknowledge. Confused affirmatives came back. On the feed, the humans, unaware of the silent crisis they'd caused, finished their work in 4 minutes, 32 seconds. The coolant flow normalized. The station-wide comm chimed. Lena's voice, slightly breathless. Hey all. Minor coolant glitch fixed. Also, the drill script has a logic error on page 45 that would have vented Deck 3 if it were real. I've patched it. You're welcome. Silence. Then, a hesitant round of species-specific thanks chirped across the channel. In the security hub, Borv sank into his chair. The conflict wasn't predator versus prey. It was order versus chaos, protocol versus progress. The humans were an evolutionary leap, a chaos of pure, pragmatic action. Pika looked at him. They don't want to rule us, Chief. They just want the station to work perfectly, and they'll politely dismantle anything in their way to achieve that. The ending was in sight, but it wasn't a battle. It was a negotiation. How do you share a home with forces of nature who think your rules are just another system error? Borv activated the comm, his voice heavy with the weight of a new understanding. Lena, please report to my office. And bring your team. We need to talk about operational boundaries. The 4 humans filed into Borv's office, not with defiance, but with the cheerful curiosity of engineers called to discuss an interesting puzzle. They carried mugs of coffee and data slates. You wanted to see us, Chief? Lena asked, leaning against the doorway. Borv looked at them, the apex predators who thought they were mechanics. The station's fate hung on this conversation. Sit, he said, his voice carefully neutral. We need to discuss today's intervention during the drill. Oh, the coolant thing. Ben said, perking up. Yeah, the flow rate deviation was actually a bigger risk than the simulation. We prioritized. You overrode station-wide emergency protocols, Zach stated, his carapace clicking from the corner. Sam shrugged. The protocol was the problem. It was based on an outdated schematic. Lena's patch fixed it. Efficiency increased by 12%. That is not the point. Gran rumbled, but even his formidable presence seemed to shrink in the face of their calm logic. Leo, quiet until now, spoke up, his eyes fixed on a flickering light panel on Borv's wall. Your light's got a faulty capacitor. It'll fail in 48 hours. Want me to fix it? Borv took a deep breath, the scent of human coffee and peanut butter filling the room. The point, he said slowly, is that this station is not just a machine. It is a community. Our protocols, our drills, they are about trust, about acting as one, even when the action seems suboptimal. The humans glanced at each other, a flicker of confusion passing between them. Lena frowned. But if we all act together on a bad plan, we all fail together. That's worse. It is about social cohesion. Ilara ventured softly from the other side of the room. The ritual matters as much as the result. Ben scratched his head. So you're saying we should knowingly do the less efficient thing sometimes? To make everyone feel better? The concept hung in the air, alien and bizarre to the humans, utterly fundamental to everyone else. Borv saw his opening. I am saying there is a system here you do not yet understand. The social system. You are brilliant with machines, but you are disrupting this one. The fear you cause isn't from malice, but from the chaos of your excellence. Lena's brows knitted. She looked genuinely troubled. Fear? Who's afraid? We're just fixing stuff. Pika couldn't contain herself. Everyone, she squeaked, then flinched as all human eyes turned to her. She swallowed. You walk, we move. You laugh, we freeze. You booped a shocked beast into submission. You are the apex, the top of the chain, and you have no idea. The humans fell silent. Sam put her coffee down. Ben stopped fidgeting. Leo's gaze left the faulty light and settled on Pika's trembling form. Lena looked slowly around the room, at Borv's tense scales, Zaxa's folded limbs, Gron's defensive hunch, Ilara's lowered antlers, Pika's puffed fur. A dawning, horrified understanding spread across her face. Oh, she said, the word small in the quiet room. Oh no. The audience leans in. The veil is lifted. The humans finally see. And the true ending begins not with a roar, but with a moment of profound, awkward, human realization. What do you do when you discover you're the monster in everyone else's story? The answer would redefine Corellia Station forever. The silence in Borv's office was absolute. Lena looked from her own hands, grease-stained, capable, non-threatening, to the terrified faces of her colleagues. Apex. The word echoed in her mind, absurd and horrifying. We've been scaring you. Sam said, her voice hushed. We thought everyone was just really polite. Ben let out a choked laugh. The right-of-way, the cleared corridors, the instant service in the mess hall. We thought it was great workplace culture. Leo was staring at Pika with dawning empathy. You've been living in a horror movie, and we were the oblivious monsters. Borv saw not arrogance in their eyes, but a crushing, genuine remorse. It was the last thing he expected. So you understand, he said carefully. We understand we broke the social machine, Lena said, her engineer's mind reframing the problem. And we need to fix it. She turned to her team. No more unilateral overrides. No more protocol bypasses. We work through the system, even if it's slower. But the inefficiencies, Ben started, then stopped at Lena's look. The social cohesion algorithm has priority, she declared. We learn it. We integrate. The solution they engineered was profoundly human. They didn't submit, they innovated. They established human hour. 1 hour per shift where they moved with exaggerated, noisy care, announcing their presence, blinking excessively, and giving overly dramatic right-of-way to others. It was a performative, slightly silly display that immediately dialed the instinctual terror down to manageable anxiety. They created a protocol review committee, inviting Pika, Zax, and Ilara to help them vet any improvements for social impact before implementation. The prey species, experts in survival nuance, became essential advisors. Most effectively, Lena officially adopted the Gorillian shock beast, now named Sparky, using her inexplicable bond to keep it calm. She became the station's de facto dangerous creature wrangler, a role that channeled her apex energy into a useful, understood function. 6 cycles later, Borv walked the promenade during shift change. The dance was different. Humans still moved with purpose, but others no longer flinched. There were nods, even brief, nervous conversations. Pika now regularly brought Lena flawed schematics for co-review, her fear replaced by a sense of vital importance. From a viewport, Borv watched Lena and Ben on the outer hull, installing the new sensor array. They worked in coordinated silence, a perfect, efficient machine. But now, they were a part of the station's larger, living machine, not a force overriding it. He felt a presence beside him. Grun. The massive Mazar grunted, watching the humans. They have domesticated themselves, he rumbled, not with resentment, but with awe. No, Borv corrected, a slow realization dawning. They have domesticated us. To them, we were a system malfunctioning from fear. And they fixed us. Gently, he shook his scaled head. The apex predators hadn't been tamed. They had, with breathtaking empathy and engineering, successfully integrated a bioweapon into an ecosystem. And somehow, everyone was better for it. On the hull, Lena turned and gave a thumbs up through the viewport. After a hesitant moment, Borv raised a clawed hand and returned the gesture. The station was safe. It was efficient. And it was, finally, starting to feel like home. The end wasn't a victory or a defeat. It was an upgrade.